Toxic relationships don't just break your heart. They mess with your mind. They convince you that love means pain, that you're too much or not enough. But deep down, you know that's not your truth. And the fact that you're here means you're ready to rewrite your story. This video is your roadmap to emotional freedom. If you're done questioning your worth and ready to rebuild with purpose, clarity, and power. Let's begin. The first step to rebuilding yourself after a toxic relationship is recognizing the damage without attaching shame to it. Many people stay in harmful relationships longer than they should, not because they're weak, but because they believe in love, hope for change, or fear being alone. It's important to acknowledge that what you experienced was not healthy without beating yourself up for the time you invested. The apology has been. That relationship may have left you emotionally drained or questioning your worth, but your choice to love someone deeply doesn't make you foolish. It makes you human. Once you start accepting the truth of what you went through, give yourself permission to feel all the emotions that come with it. The sadness, anger, confusion, and even guilt are part of the healing process. Ignoring those feelings or pretending everything is fine only buries the pain deeper. Allow yourself to grieve not just the person, but the version of the future you once imagined with them. There's a real loss there, and honoring it is a powerful step toward emotional freedom. Alongside grief comes forgiveness, not just for the other person, but for yourself. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Maybe you missed red flags. Maybe you tolerated behavior you shouldn't have. But that doesn't mean you deserved what happened. You're allowed to be kind to yourself in your recovery. Self-forgiveness clears the way for growth, helping you break out of the cycle of self-blame that toxic relationships often create. Finally, view this awareness as a foundation rather than a flaw. Seeing your past clearly allows you to make new, empowered choices. Apology has been. It's not about forgetting the pain, but learning from it. Every insight, every realization brings you one step closer to the strongest version of yourself has been. This isn't just the end of something painful. It's the beginning of something powerful. And that journey starts by choosing to see the truth without judgment. Going no contact after a toxic relationship can feel incredibly difficult. Has been, especially if you're still emotionally attached to the person. There may be a part of you that hopes they'll change or come back with an apology that fixes everything once the apology has been. But holding on to that hope only keeps you stuck in a cycle of pain. Continuing to check their social media or responding to their messages reopens that are trying to heal. You can't rebuild yourself while still clinging to someone who tore you down. Cutting off contact is not about being cold or harsh. It's about protecting your peace and giving yourself the space to breathe again. When you stay in touch, even casually, your mind stays in the relationship. You replay conversations, decode texts, and question your decisions. That emotional energy could be going into your healing, your goals, and your happiness. Choosing distance allows your heart and mind to reset and separate your identity from the chaos they created. It's common to feel guilt or fear when you block someone or walk away completely. You might worry about looking rude or dramatic, but prioritizing your well-being is not selfish. It's essential. You've spent enough time managing their emotions, trying not to upset them and walking on eggshells. Now it's your turn to focus on your own emotional safety. It's not your job to manage how they feel about your boundaries. Your responsibility is to honor your own healing process. Going no contact gives you the mental clarity to remember who you were before the relationship, and it helps you discover who you want to become after it. It creates the silence needed for reflection, growth, and peace. With each day of distance, you begin to see the situation more clearly, and your attachment starts to loosen. That's when real healing begins. Not by waiting for them to come back, but by learning to move forward without needing them at all. Has been grieving after a toxic relationship can be confusing because, on the surface, it may seem strange to mourn someone who caused you pain. But grief isn't always about losing a good person. It's often about losing what you thought could have been. You may have pictured a future with this person. Shared dreams, love, support, and happiness. When that vision is shattered, it leaves behind a deep emptiness. Even if they treated you poorly, has been, it's natural to feel a sense of loss over the life you hoped for. Apology has been. You might find yourself missing the good moments or the parts of the relationship that felt real. There may have been times when they were kind or made you feel special, and those memories can be powerful, has been. But grieving those parts doesn't mean you want to go back or that you've forgotten the harm they caused. It simply means you're human. Emotions aren't black and white. You can feel both sadness and relief. You can miss them and still know it was right to leave. During this time, allow yourself to cry, to sit with your feelings, and to express them in ways that feel natural to you. Journaling, talking to a friend, apology has been, or even just being quiet with your thoughts can help you understand what you're experiencing. The goal is not to rush through the pain or numb it, but to move through it gently. Grief doesn't have a set timeline, and it doesn't look the same for everyone. The more you allow yourself to feel, the more space you create to heal. Eventually, the grief will begin to loosen its grip. As you continue to process what happened, once been, you'll notice that the sadness becomes less heavy, the memories less sharp. Has been, what once felt like a constant ache will turn into a quiet reminder of your strength. You'll begin to realize that by letting go of the illusion, you're making room for something real. And even though grieving hurts, it's a necessary part of breaking free and stepping into a healthier, more authentic version of yourself. After leaving a toxic relationship, many people find themselves feeling lost or disoriented. That's because the relationship, even if painful, often provided a certain structure to daily life. You may have scheduled your time around them, adjusted your habits to keep the peace, or even neglected your own routines entirely. When they're gone, the empty space left behind can feel overwhelming. It's in this space that you now have the opportunity to rebuild your life, not based on someone else's moods or needs, but centered around your own well-being. Start small and intentional. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. Begin with tiny habits that bring you peace and stability. Maybe that's taking a walk in the morning, preparing your favorite breakfast, reading a book at night, or finally returning to a hobby you had abandoned. These acts might seem simple, apology has been, but they carry a powerful message. You're showing up for yourself. Each action helps anchor you in the present and reminds you that your time is your own again. As you begin to rebuild your routine, try to fill your day with things that support your mental, emotional, and physical health. This could include exercising to release tension, meditating to calm your thoughts, or journaling to process your emotions. These practices not only help restore a sense of control, but they also slowly rebuild your confidence. Over time, the apology has been. Your new routines become a reflection of your healing and growth, rather than reminders of the pain you endured. What's most important is that your daily life becomes a safe space, a structure that supports who you truly are, that toxic relationships often distort your identity. But as you take back your time and energy has been, you start to remember the person you were before and discover who you're becoming now. Your new routine isn't just a schedule. It's a declaration. It says that your life is valuable, your peace is non-negotiable, and your future is entirely your own to shape. Toxic relationships often leave behind more than just emotional pain. They leave behind false beliefs about who you are. These beliefs are planted subtly over time through criticism, manipulation, or even silence. You may have been told, directly or indirectly, that you're too emotional, too sensitive, not smart enough, or not lovable unless you act a certain way. Over time, these messages begin to echo in your own thoughts, and you start to accept them as truth without even realizing it. One of the most powerful steps in healing is to challenge those beliefs head on. Apology has been. Take some time to identify the specific lies you absorbed during the relationship. Write them down so you can see them clearly for what they are. Not facts, but judgments placed on you by someone who wanted to control or diminish you. Once you've listed them, begin to question each one. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is it really true? What evidence in my life proves the opposite? Has been. Maybe you believed you were too needy, but in reality, you were just asking for basic emotional support. The apology has been. Perhaps you were told you weren't capable, but you've overcome challenges, learned new things, and shown strength in ways you forgot to recognize. By confronting these lies with real examples from your own life, you start to rewrite the narrative in your mind. Has been you stop defining yourself by someone else's standards and start reclaiming your true identity. This process doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and repetition to replace those negative thoughts with truthful, empowering ones. But each time you catch yourself thinking something hurtful, you now have the tools to push back. Healing from a toxic relationship means learning to see yourself clearly again. Not through the lens of someone who tried to break you, but through the eyes of someone who is finally free. You get to decide who you are, and that is one of the most freeing realizations of all. After a toxic relationship, isolation can feel like the safest option. Polly has been. You might feel drained, embarrassed, or even ashamed of what you went through, and the idea of opening up to others can seem overwhelming. But healing in silence is not only lonely. It's limiting. Once the apology has been, you weren't meant to carry the weight of recovery alone. One of the most healing things you can do is to surround yourself with people who remind you of your worth and show you what healthy connection really looks like. These people don't have to be perfect or always have the right words. What matters most is that they are emotionally safe. People who listen without judgment, who don't dismiss your feelings, and who genuinely care about your well-being. It could be an old friend you lost touch with, a sibling who's always been in your corner, or even a support group online where others understand exactly what you've been through. Sometimes hearing, "Me too," from someone who's walked a similar path can be more comforting than 100 motivational quotes. When you're around supportive people, something powerful happens. You begin to see yourself through their eyes. You start to remember your strengths, your kindness, your resilience. The right people will reflect back to you the version of yourself that you might have forgotten during the relationship. Once the apology has been, they'll remind you that you're not too much, not too broken, and definitely not alone. This reflection helps you rebuild confidence slowly and steadily from the inside out. Leaning on others doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Toxic relationships often teach us to depend only on ourselves, to mistrust others, or to believe we're a burden when we ask for help. But true connection is about mutual support. Letting people in, even a little at a time, is a brave act of healing. It's a way of saying, I deserve love that doesn't hurt. And when you allow yourself to receive that kind of love from friends, family, or community, you begin to rewrite your understanding of what relationships should feel like. After being in a toxic relationship, it can be difficult to separate love from pain. The lines become blurred when affection is mixed with control or when emotional highs are followed by deep lows. You might begin to believe that love is supposed to be hard, dramatic, or even exhausting. But that is not love. It's survival, has been. Real love doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't make you feel small, insecure, or constantly on edge. Recognizing this is the first toward redefining what love truly means to you. To redefine love, you have to get honest about what you experienced. Ask yourself whether what you called love was really about connection, or if it was about fear, control, or dependency. Think back to moments when you felt silenced, manipulated, or emotionally neglected. Did you feel safe expressing your needs? Did you feel seen and valued for who you are? These questions are important because they help you understand not only what went wrong, but also what you deeply need and deserve going forward. This process also involves reflecting on what you truly want from a relationship, separate from anyone else's expectations. What does love feel like when it's healthy? Maybe it's calm, supportive, kind, and respectful. Maybe it's laughter without tension, the apology has been. Communication without walking on eggshells. And trust without having to constantly prove yourself. When you visualize this kind of love, you're not just setting standards for others. You're learning how to show that same love to yourself. Redefining love is not about building a wall around your heart. It's about being wiser, clearer, and more protective of your emotional space. It's the difference between letting someone in blindly and letting them in because their presence aligns with your peace has been. When you truly understand what love should look and feel like, apology has been. You become less willing to accept anything that doesn't meet that level. You stop repeating the old cycle and instead begin creating a new story. One rooted in self-worth, awareness, and genuine connection. Toxic relationships often cause you to slowly let go of the things that once made you feel alive. Maybe you used to dance without caring who was watching, write your thoughts in a journal every night, or laugh loudly at your favorite shows. But over time, those pieces of yourself can get buried beneath the weight of emotional stress, criticism, or simply the constant need to manage someone else's feelings. You begin to shrink, not because you want to, because it feels safer than being fully seen or judged. As you begin to heal, apology has been. It's important to ask yourself what parts of you were lost during that time. What did you stop doing that used to bring you joy or peace? These activities, no matter how small they seem, are not just hobbies. They are parts of your identity. Reconnecting with them helps remind you of who you were before the relationship and who you still are underneath the pain. It's not about forcing happiness, but about rediscovering the things that naturally make you feel like yourself again. Start by reintroducing one activity at a time. You don't have to immediately return to everything you used to do. Just pick one thing that sparks curiosity or comfort. It might be painting, running, cooking your favorite meals, or even spending time in nature. As you do these things, you'll begin to feel a sense of lightness returning. These moments of joy are signs that you are coming back home to yourself little by little with every step. This process of reconnection is a vital part of rebuilding your confidence and sense of identity. Apology has been. It reminds you that you are not defined by the pain you experienced or the way someone else treated you. Once the apology has been, you are defined by the things that make your soul light up, the things you choose to return to because they feel like truth. Healing isn't just about leaving the past behind. It's about reclaiming your right to fully be yourself again. One of the most powerful lessons you gain after leaving a toxic relationship is a clearer understanding of what you will and will not tolerate. When someone has disrespected your boundaries, manipulated your emotions, or taken advantage of your kindness, you start to see just how important it is to protect your space. You may have once thought that setting boundaries was selfish or harsh, but now you realize it is an act of self-respect. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are guidelines. Let others know how to treat you. Learning to say no is one of the first steps in boundary setting. It might feel uncomfortable at first once the apology has been, especially if you're used to pleasing others or avoiding conflict. But every time you say no to something that drains you or crosses your limits, you're saying yes to yourself. You're choosing your well-being over someone else's approval. That shift in thinking is where true healing begins. You stop abandoning yourself to make others comfortable, and you start standing firm in your needs. Boundaries can show up in many forms. Maybe it means not replying to late night texts, has been refusing to engage in emotionally charged conversations, or walking away when someone tries to guilt trip you. It also means recognizing red flags early and acting on them instead of brushing them aside. Boundaries require you to be honest, not just with others, but with yourself about what feels right, what feels wrong, and when it's time to walk away from something that isn't serving you. Over time, setting boundaries becomes second nature. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your energy. Instead, you feel empowered, has been. You'll notice that your life begins to feel more peaceful, Your relationships become more balanced, and you start attracting people who respect and value you. That's the beauty of boundaries. They don't just keep toxicity out, they create space for something better to come in. And that space exactly where you begin to thrive. When you leave a toxic relationship, it's easy to get stuck in the past. You may replay old conversations, wonder what you could have done differently, or carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. These thoughts are normal, but they can keep you anchored to a version of yourself that no longer exists. The truth is, while your past shaped you, it doesn't have to define your future. Healing begins when you shift your focus from what hurt you to what can now heal and grow within you. Instead of clinging to what could have been, begin to imagine what could be. Who do you want to become now that you're free from that emotional weight? Maybe it's someone more confident, peaceful, or driven. Start visualizing your ideal life in detail. Your relationships, your passions, your daily habits. See that future version of you clearly and begin showing up for yourself as if you are already becoming that person. Small, intentional steps taken daily can turn that vision into reality. It's also important to recognize that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting what happened. The past holds lessons that are valuable, but it's meant to be a teacher, not a home. Carry the wisdom, not the wounds. Use the pain you experienced as fuel to build something better. Let it strengthen your boundaries, sharpen your self-awareness, and deepen your self-love. When you fall in love with your future, you stop needing validation from the past. You begin to trust your own voice more than anyone else's. This mindset shift is where your true transformation begins. Life after a toxic relationship isn't just about surviving. It's about evolving. You are not broken, you are rebuilding. And every day that you choose healing, self-respect, and growth, you're moving closer to a life that feels fulfilling and free. The future is not something to fear. It's a place filled with new beginnings. And the best part is you get to create it on your own terms.